Okay, good evening. Welcome back to tuition2u.com. You're now with Vesundram. Okay, so this is just a quick update to the paper 3 question. So I hope you already watched my earlier video, my first video on how to the technique on answering the paper 3 question. So this is just an update to the question that we already discussed. So now we have a modified version of the same experiment. So again, we really don't know what is the exact question that's going to come out. A lot of rumors going around. So based on looking at O level and looking at A level question, so I think they could ask a different version of the yeast fermentation. So that is what I'm going to discuss quickly in this short video. I hope you already watched the earlier video, because I'm not going to spend time re-explaining all the techniques. I'm going to show you what is the difference between the experiment that I explained in the first video and the experiment that I'm going to discuss now. So it's just a slight, basically the difference is just the responding variable. What are you going to measure in the experiment? Besides that, it's yeast. Yeast does alcohol fermentation. Whichever way you modify it, they are going to do yeast and alcohol fermentation. So the process doesn't change. That means the constant generally doesn't change. It's going to be the yeast. Now, what they can do in the experiment, maybe they can change the manipulated variable, or maybe they can change the responding variable. So when we think of the manipulated variable, generally it's the two things that they can change. Maybe we have an experiment, presence or non-presence of yeast. That is one experiment which they could ask, presence of yeast and non-presence of yeast, 2 test tubes, and then you might measure the number of, that is yeast in my explanation is supposed to be constant variable. They can make it manipulated variable. They make others constant. They make the glucose concentration constant, but they change the yeast presence and the absence of yeast. And you might measure the number of bubbles released per minute, maybe for example, every minute how many, or every 2 minutes how many bubbles is released, you might count. Or maybe there might be even an experiment, which I'll explain after this, in which instead of counting the number of bubbles, you're going to count the foam, the height of the foam that is produced through this reaction. So this experiment doesn't need paraffin oil, doesn't need the glass tube to collect. The lime water is all not needed. I have the video here. I was able to find a video related to this. So I'll just show you this video. This is from another YouTube. Let me see that. Okay, so I'll play this video. Just take note of this video. This is also yeast fermentation, but in here, basically, you can see the foam that is forming. The experiment in SPM exam, maybe they can modify this. This one is using a large beaker. They can repeat the experiment in a test tube, in a boiling tube, and they can ask you to measure the height of the foam that is produced. Now, no, the experiment doesn't change. It's the same experiment. You're just changing what are you measuring. Instead of measuring the number of air bubbles, actually, it's a blessing, because measuring the number of air bubbles, the apparatus setup is quite complicated, and you might miss the bubble or something like that. Who knows? But in here, it's just the foam increasing, and you measure the height. It's suppose, if you get this, it'd be very good. In the sense, it's an easier experiment. We don't know what is it. We even don't know whether it's yeast experiment. But what if, instead of counting the number of bubbles, something like this comes out? It's a very short video, 1 minute. Let me just play it. So you can see in this experiment, they are actually they are manipulating the concentration of glucose. So the first one doesn't have glucose, the second one has a certain gram, and the third one has a different gram. Basically, they are changing the concentration of glucose. Take note of the video. See the foam that is increasing in height. You might have to measure that, because this is a beaker. So the height might not be that fast. But if you're using a boiling tube, the increase can be faster. So you can see some changes in now. You can see the third one. You can see the third one. The foam already become quite high. So the increase in the height of the foam can be the responding. The height of the foam can be the responding variable. So that is what I'm going to discuss. If the experiment is something like this, instead of measuring the number of air bubbles, we measure the height of the foam that is produced, how the experiment is, how the question is going to be. So I come back to, so that's how, just imagine the same experiment, but you're using a boiling tube instead of a beaker. So you might change the amount of yeast, maybe have yeast, no yeast, or you might change the glucose concentration. I think it, anyway, we can't predict. Maybe it's 5%, 10% glucose solution. So you measure the height, the foam that is produced, you measure the height. That's how. And when we look at the question, so this is a question that I have a new set of questions that I've created. I modified the question that I've already given you before. So the first question that I discussed, similar to that. That means I'll finish off this quickly. I'll just highlight what are the differences from the earlier set that I gave you. So so this is the same thing. I just made it into set 2. Now I've modified. I'm using the same set of material and apparatus, same thing, but I've just added one more down here, which is I've added a ruler into the experiment, because you need a ruler to measure the height of the foam. That's the only changes I'm going to do. So I've left this part same. It's basically the same experiment. So I've just took this picture to show you more or less how the foam is going to look like. So you can clearly see, like here, there is no foam. Here, the foam is thicker. Here, the foam is like a shorter compared to the last one. So similar to this could be an experiment that you're conducting. It could even be just one boiling tube. You measure the increase in the height for every 2 meters also can. Instead of giving you 3 test tubes, you have to measure every 2 minutes once. The height, maybe, at 0 centimeter, maybe at 2 minutes is maybe 1 centimeter. At 4 minutes, it might be, 6 centimeters, something like that. So slowly, if it's like that, it's going to increase. There will come a time it's going to become flat, because generally the glucose is going to finish. So the alcohol fermentation will continue. So in the beginning, it will increase, and then ultimately is going to become flat because there is no more glucose to be catalyzed. So a hyperbolic, a curve could also be produced. Check the experiment. The thing is, responding changes. Experiment is same. So I've given the instruction down here. Please read through. It's the same experiment. I just modified slightly. What did I modify is I need to mark the initial level of the solution and also the end of the solution. As the foam increases, becomes taller, at 15 minutes, I mark the ending. So we have 2 marking. We can measure the length of the foam that is produced. That is the instruction I've given here. So that means the responding variable is not the number of air bubbles that is produced, is the height of the foam that is produced in the boiling tube. That's about it. So the rest is same. So now my first video is unguided experiment. This video is guided. So guided means the questions are going to be, the arrangement is going to be different. We first, please read through all of this on your own. I just want to finish this video quickly. So what I have changed is this. See, now this has changed. This is now the height of foam produced in 15 minutes. That's the only change I'm doing. So I've randomly put some numbers here. Please conduct the experiment. We don't know what is it. If this, conduct the experiment and get the height. And then the standard. So I've given you the formula also, how to measure the rate of yeast alcohol fermentation. So this is the calculation I've done. Is almost same with what I showed you in the first video. The difference here is I've changed this heading into the responding into the height of boiling tube in 15 minutes. So just make sure you have all the units in the calculation, in the answer. That should give you the marks. If there's any mistakes here, I'm sorry. I've typed this quickly so that I can do this video before you go to sleep. And this is the same thing. So the first question is you complete the table, fill in the table by conducting the experiment, and then calculate the rate of alcohol fermentation. The formula is here. Now the observation. So we have two observations based on the table. You can choose A or B, your choice. If you have more than two data, as I mentioned in my first video, choose the highest or the lowest. So here I'm choosing A. So test tube A contains what? And the height of the foam is the responding variable, 3 centimeter. If you already understand my first video, all of these are bonus questions for you. And I don't even want to explain because you should already know that from the first video. Second one here, the inference. Same inference that I gave you in the first video. I'm writing back. I just changed this. Instead of release as air bubbles that you're counting, now it forms foam. Air bubble is going to form the foam. The foam is going to increase in height. That is the explanation. Inference is basically explanation of your observation. Your observation is the foam is 3 centimeter. Now the question, why the foam is 3? Why you have a foam in the first place? Because the yeast is doing alcohol fermentation because there is no oxygen. And alcohol fermentation releases carbon dioxide. More carbon dioxide produced, the foam height increases. Okay, maybe say the keyword more. So that creates more foam. So more is important. It creates more foam. That is why the height is increasing. Okay, other than that, what are the variables? So the variable manipulated didn't change. They could give you a different manipulated variable, presence or absence of yeast. Without yeast, there won't be any air bubbles produced. The foam won't be produced. With the yeast, the foam will be produced. It could be the manipulated variable. We don't know. I think it's going to be something like this, or maybe not this also, because we don't know what is the experiment. Let's hope this something like this comes up. So how to handle? Make sure you use the word use. Sorry, in my first video I had all of colorings. Now no time to do the coloring. So basically the keyword, the term that you must use is use. Mention both concentration you're using. Check the question, what they mention, write back. What is the responding variable? Height of the foam. Make sure you have the word measure and record. In my first video, I count and record because I count the number of bubbles and I didn't have any device. This one, you need to measure the height. You must mention the device. The device is ruler. So measure and record must have, using the ruler also must have. When you have a device responding, you must mention the device. Constant, there is a mass of yeast, duration of experiment, volume of glucose solution. I've given all the 3 answers. Make sure you use the key term, fix. So fix, choose one. I'm given all 3, choose any one of them. Should give you the marks. So in the next page, we have hypothesis. Based on my first video, higher combination or lower combination. So the higher the concentration of glucose, the higher the height of foam in boiling tube. You don't want to use the height of foam. You can also use this as your answer. The rate of yeast reaction also can. Or because the question says the rate of yeast reaction, I can use the word because the question says so. But if let's say the question says rate of alcohol fermentation, that should be the better one. If it says rate of alcohol fermentation, I will follow what's in the question. If it says yeast reaction, I'll use yeast reaction. If it says alcohol fermentation, I'll use alcohol fermentation. So if it's alcohol fermentation, then here you write alcohol fermentation. You can write the higher the concentration of glucose, the higher the rate of alcohol fermentation. Now, higher, the higher the concentration of glucose, the higher the rate of alcohol fermentation in the yeast. Fine. Manipulated responding keyword. Have that, get your marks. So the next one. Sorry, I didn't draw the graph because it's going to be around the same with what I already draw. I repeat, it could be a straight line or If it's one boiling tube, you measure the increase in the height of, I mean, only one boiling tube. Every 2 minutes or 3 minutes, you measure the height, you measure the height. So the graph will be a curve. Now, in the beginning, it will increase sharply. Slowly, it becomes stagnant. Why stagnant? Glucose already finished. No more glucose to do alcohol fermentation. That could be another question, which will be a surprise for many students. Take note. Okay, from there, prediction as usual. Prediction, we are going to change one of the manipulator, or maybe we change one of the precautionary measures. What I've done here is I have changed the manipulated variable. Question have 5%, 10%. I just randomly put 15%. You know the technique. Make sure you use the data. The data was 6. The height was 6 centimeter. If you use 10%. If you use 15%, it must be greater than 6 centimeter. Everything already explained in the first video. So just use the technique. Just slight variation of the same experiment. Explain more manipulated variable, meaning more concentration of glucose. The rate of alcohol fermentation is higher. More carbon dioxide is released. The foam produced is higher. Responding variable, add it into the answer. And the last one, okay, now the last one, some students are claiming that, you know, you need to mention the theory answer also. So some students are saying I need to include, you know, their teachers are asking to include the theory. So to cater for that group of students, what I've done here is, you see, I've added in this. So my original answer in the previous video, fermentation is process that causes increase in the height of foam bubble in boiling tube that contains 2 yeast. I didn't add in the theory. So some students are claiming the teacher asked to add in the theory. So nothing much. Add in the theory. They ask you to add in, edit it. That involves incomplete. This is theory of alcohol fermentation. Incomplete breakdown of glucose. If you feel necessary, edit it. It's not wrong in the first place, because for me, you must have this word and this word. So if your teacher claims that she needs, he or she needs the theory part of it, edit it. No, there's no harm, edit it. If you feel necessary, edit it. No, don't have regret after, you know, come out for the exam, or I should have written that, I should have written this. You know, if you feel necessary, do it in the exam. So as long as you don't go out of, you don't give the wrong answer, it's fine. It is alcohol fermentation, incomplete breakdown of glucose. So you're not writing something that is wrong, edit it. Fine, that's all. So I didn't do the graph. Please, you follow the techniques I mentioned in my first video, get your full marks. So this could be a modified version of the experiment that we discussed in the first video. So just in case I'm giving it to you, so it's quite late already, 9:40. If you watch it, just in case, if it comes out, okay. If not come out, also depends on luck. Let's see how it goes. All the best in your exam. Thanks for watching. You can download this question from my website, tuitiontoyou.com. If you already visited my website earlier, the paper 3 set, you can now, I've already added this question also. You can download from there. The video that I showed you earlier, also I've already put a link in my website. You can watch it if you want. All the best in your exam. Thanks for watching.